Hello, my name is Michael Doyle, and today I'm going to speak about my research topic, George Whitefield, and the impact he made during the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening that swept through the American colonies during the 1730s and 1740s brought about a new passion and fervor for Christianity that seemed to have gone stale over the decades. Now, during the 1700s, there was a movement amongst the philosophical giants of the time in Europe. And this sparked a movement called Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason, and it began to make its way across the Atlantic to the American colonies. There was a heavy emphasis on science and thinking of the world in a logical manner, in which began to downplay religion. What the people of the American colonies did not know was that they were about to experience the closest thing to today's rock star in an English Anglican evangelist. George Whitefield's passion for preaching, his larger-than-life persona, and shrewdness for publicity and marketing himself gave way to him becoming one of the key figures of the Great Awakening, the ripples of which that can still be felt today. Religion had become much more rigid and a formality, leading to parishioners feeling that it was less personal for them. This obviously led to lower church attendance, and Christians that felt satisfied with the way they worshipped, and there were others that were disappointed with how rationalism and the obsession with wealth dominated the culture and the people around them. Many Christians desired to return to religious piety. In Mark Noll's book, A History of Christianity in the United States and Canada, he states, in New England, the revival brought new life to many congregational churches and greatly stimulated the growth of the Baptists. In the Middle Colonies, the Presbyterians and the Dutch Reformed, after initial divisions over revival practices, ended up growing rapidly because of its emphasis. In the Southern colonies, which were affected in the late phases of the Awakening, the revival led to new growth for Baptists and began to prepare a way for the great Methodist movement of the post-revolutionary period. The Great Awakening revitalized the colonies and swept through like a wildfire. One of the personalities that soaked that said wildfire was George Whitefield. George Whitefield traveled directly to Philadelphia upon his arrival in America with an agenda and a message. Whitefield was known in England from his time as an itinerant minister, not being assigned a pulpit after ordination. He preached to those who normally did not go to church and found that his passionate delivery elicited emotional responses from the audience. Whitefield made multiple trips to the American colonies throughout his life, but it was the second journey from 1739 to 1741 that seemed to make the largest impact. Whitefield also was known as the forgotten founding father and is considered to be one of the greatest orators of all time. However, following his inaugural visit to New England in 1739, a robust debate erupted among colonial religious sects over the perceived threats and benefits of Whitefield revivalist preaching. And much of the success that Whitefield experienced in the American colonies was due to his age, the eloquent theatrical skills that he molded into a new electrifying sermon style. They loved seeing this young man preach. Most of the colonists were used to a more formal church service and sermon, with much less theatrics. And there was intrigue amongst the colonists to see the young preacher in his fiery sermons, but there was more going on than just Whitefield at the pulpit. Throughout Whitefield's tours of the American colonies, he made it a point to draw attention to what the local church was, or in his eyes, was not doing correctly. And what set George Whitefield apart from other itinerants during the Great Awakening was his use of the press. In Frank Lambert's article, Peddler in Divinity, he says that in the first year of Whitefield's public ministry, press coverage helped elevate him and his revival to an unprecedented level of popular acceptance. While Whitefield was not yet ordained as an Anglican minister and little known outside his hometown of Gloucester, England, he became the best-known evangelist in the Atlantic world, in a large part because of newspaper advertising, which interpreted his preaching as a second Reformation. George Whitefield has been categorized as someone who, even though he did not live to see the American Revolution, was a loud, defining voice that helped colonists have the ideas and the will to rebel from Great Britain. They heard his words and encouragement to dissent. This rhetoric helped plant the seeds of revolution and helped inspire many of our founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson. The Great Awakening and George Whitefield had lasting impacts on Christianity in the American colonies, from which the ripples can still be felt today. Regardless of his reputation with clergy, Whitefield was able to captivate audiences, lead many to salvation, and shake up the status quo. Thank you.